Welcome to Uncopyable Women in Sales. If you're looking for actionable insights and real-world tools to turbocharge your sales starting tomorrow, well, you're in the right place. Your host, Kay Miller, earned the affectionate nickname Muffler Mama when she sold more automotive mufflers than anyone else in the world. In this podcast, Kay will talk to another superstar woman in sales as they reveal uncopyable strategies you can use to rack up more leads, snag dream clients, and take your sales numbers through the roof. Stay tuned and get ready to make more sales and how about this? More money.
Today I have the pleasure of talking with Robin Robbins. Robin is the IT industry's most in-demand marketing consultant, sales trainer, and direct response marketing consultant. She's the founder of Technology Marketing Toolkit, MSP Success Magazine, and Big Red Media. Robin, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Kay. Appreciate you.
Now, I met you through my husband, Steve, and he spoke at one of your boot camps years ago.
A couple of them. He spoke a couple times, actually. Not at boot camp, but at other, interviews and so forth. Yeah.
Okay, good. And you do have an annual boot camp that is just phenomenal. And just to give the listener an idea of some of the speakers and guests that you've had, they include Robert Herjavec, Damon John, Kevin O'Leary from, of course, Shark Tank, and Peyton Manning. And
Emmett Smith. We're having Dr. Jordan Peterson this year. So we do have some big names.
Big names. And Lance Armstrong, right?
We've had, Lance Armstrong was iconic. Mike Rowe, Dirty Jobs. It just kind of runs the gamut of different people that we've had speak for sure. Sammy the Bull Gravano. I had him too.
You get some awesome speakers, and I did watch some of the testimonial videos from the people who attend, and it's just made a huge impact on them and their businesses. And I heard you say, you want to impact not only businesses, but lives, and you totally do that. So I want to give the listener just a little taste of what you've done differently, what you feel has made you successful in your career. And I know that you have had a lot of things to overcome, especially early on, but what makes Robin Robbins so successful?
When I think about how was I able to achieve what I've achieved in building a business and impacting a lot of people, because really, I think the definition of success is doing what you love with people you love while also building wealth for yourself, right? I mean, that's my personal definition. So I've been able to do that. And I think I really want to put it down to a very passionate, serious focus on my education and learning. Even when I couldn't afford the seminars, I went to the seminars. When I couldn't afford the coaching, I paid for it anyway. Read every book I could get my hands on. Today, I listen to more on audio. I learn better with video and audio, I've discovered, rather than reading, but I still read. If I get a good book, I listen to it on audio, and then I'll buy the physical copy and put notes in it. And, I'm really big on not just reading a big stack of books to say, oh, look at all the books I'm reading, like there's some accomplishment in that. I think, a good book, if you get it and go deep and you really implement the wisdom in it, can really make a difference. And I think so. One, I think it's been just a very deep, passionate focus on skill development, on learning and skill development. So knowing how to do something and being able to do it are two different things. So you can read a book on sales, but are you actually practicing what's in the book? Are you perfecting what's in the book? And I think that's one of the things that makes me different than most people is I get into the weeds. I get into the detail. I don't just read a book and say, oh, that's a nice general idea, and then I go half-ass implement it. I think I really do dig in and get into the details, into the specifics, into the step-by-step, into the documentation, into the process. And I see that as missing in a lot of entrepreneurs in their success because, as the saying goes, there's the devil's in the details, right? And so to be successful in sales or as an entrepreneur requires you to have a big vision and a big picture, like big picture things but it also requires you to go down to the micro and make sure that, if we say that customer service is important, are we actually, when we answer the phone, is there a process for how we answer the phone, for how we deal with an upset customer? Is there a script? Is there a process? That would be number one. Number two, is it being followed? So I think it's skill development, but then also I'm very good at implementation of an idea.
And I know that's been a lifelong passion of yours. You did have to overcome some major obstacles back in the beginning, but even then you mentioned listening to Zig Ziglar tapes and Jim Rohn tapes and just always being such a sponge for learning. But as you said, a lot of times we read books and then we forget what we read. So the fact that you really dive in and you take notes and you study so that you can implement that
Correct.
is really huge. Some of the things I admire about you, you are very driven and determined. And to me, you don't even seem like you do have fear, but I'm sure either at some point you've had fear or maybe you sometimes still do. How do you overcome that?
Well, I think your fears change over your lifetime. What I was afraid of when I was a teenager was whether or not I was going to have food and a place to live. That's not really the fear I have today. And today, there's different things that might keep you awake at night. But today I think my bigger fear today is anything involving my kids. I mean, I have two girls, and I worry about the world. I mean, like any parent, I think would. If anything, that would be the thing that I worry about most. I don't I do worry about, in business, the thing I would say I am most concerned with or worried about would just be ensuring that as we grow, we are continuing to deliver excellence, that we are continuing to be really very valuable and relevant to our clients. Those are the things, as you grow an organization, when you have like 5 employees or 10 employees, I mean, it's pretty easy, right? And I'm discovering as, since, we've surpassed the 150 employee mark and we're continuing to grow, it gets harder and harder and harder because you have to constantly be reorganizing your leadership team and reorganizing products and services, and change happens really fast. And when you're big, it's not just one department where you can call I used to be able to like lean my head into the other room and tell everybody, here's what's going on, right? And everyone's like, okay, got it. Obviously it's not the case when you have a larger organization and you have to understand the complexity of growing a company. I won't say it worries me because in the sense of we know what to do, we know how to do it. It's just a matter of being able to keep that pace up and make sure that excellence is delivered, that we're continuing to be relevant, that we're continuing to do better, bigger things. And I still see, I mean, this is what drives me nuts, I guess, it's the gap from where we are today, even though we're infinitely better than we've ever been. It's still like I always say, we could be better, we could be more excellent, we could drive more value, we can be more profitable, we can be more utilized, we can be more everything, And so I wouldn't say it's fear. It's not fear. I think it's just a desire, maybe an anxiety to make sure that, those standards are hit. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I'm not afraid to be in a room with a successful person anymore. I used to be very intimidated, and now we have, like you mentioned, we have these people who come to our event. We had Wolf of Wall Street, Jordan Belfort, we've had, Emmett Smith, we've had Peyton Manning, we've had the Sharks at Shark Tank, and you know, I'm not nervous in front of those people anymore. You start to realize, eh, they're just people. So I'm not intimidated or fearful of that. I'm not fearful of talking to somebody, selling something. I'm not fearful of, losing a big deal because I know if I lose one deal, I'm going to have 10 more lined up. It's just that's the way life is. So yeah, I think your fears evolve and change because as you gain more capabilities and confidence, you get less fearful. I mean, that's what confidence is you're not afraid to do whatever it is. Well, how do you get not afraid? You get not afraid by having courage to take a step forward, to do the thing that you're afraid of multiple times until you're used to it. And I mean, like there was a time when we were probably all scared to death to get behind the wheel of an automobile. And now we don't think anything of it. Why? Because we're capable, we're confident, we're not afraid. I mean, we might be a little anxious. We're looking around, make sure, a drunk driver doesn't hit us or we're, if it's icy out. But, by and large, you're not afraid of it. And I think that's the thing I would say to everybody is if there is a fear that is holding you back, the only way to overcome it is to expose yourself to it more and more and more frequently, maybe in small doses at first, but then keep exposing yourself. And after a while, it'll just become very mundane and average, and you won't even think anything about it.
Well, I think it is refreshing to hear that you were afraid on some level in the beginning, because you're right. The only way to overcome that is to do it. And then you become more and more comfortable with that. Since we're talking to women in sales, I would like to address something that I read that you just said. I think it was an article in your magazine, and that is do not sell on price. You had some very interesting things to say about that. And one of them is, of course, if you live by price, you die by price. And so let's talk a little bit about selling on value and how you see that, how you do that.
Okay. Well, I think first and foremost, as an entrepreneur and running a business, the first thing you have to do is get logical. Okay. Logical in the sense of what is it going to, well, first of all, what am I delivering to my customer? And really thinking about what will surprise, delight, attract, keep that customer. I think most people just like, okay, so I work with MSPs. These are IT companies. And what most IT companies do when they're thinking about like, well, what do I want to sell? First of all, they have no clue on who their target client profile is. They don't have an idea of who is my sweet spot, slam dunk, ideal customer that I want to get in here.
Call that your moose. We call that your moose. You see the picture behind me? That is your ideal target market. The customer you can serve, who will want to buy from you, just what you're talking about. So you're saying that a lot of your customers, probably a lot of
business owners, it's anybody who can fog a mirror and write a check. I mean, that's really, and maybe in the beginning when you're just getting started and you really don't know, that's okay as a place to start. Just like, hey, let me sell something and see what shows up and sort of, because you can't steer a parked car. I love that. That's one of my favorite sayings. So you got to sell a couple things and well, who do I like? Who do I work well with? And et cetera. It took me a year to figure out who my target client profile is. And we're continuing to develop that even today, because as your business evolves, you might decide you want to go upstream over to a different market, et cetera. So I think you have to start with that. Okay. Then the next thing you have to say to yourself is, what is really going to surprise, delight, and attract that customer? What are they not getting now? What are they frustrated with? What are they irritated with? And I think a lot of business owners, again, they're not clear on their customer. And then when they design their service, their product, they just look around and go, well, what do you charge? What do you charge? What do you do? And they just sort of cobble something together that's very middle of the road, very mediocre, kind of like, all right, we'll price it somewhere in the middle. And you end up with Applebee's. It's like, it's not terrible, but it's just Applebee's, and so I think for Applebee's, I'll never get a sponsorship from them because I use that. It's terrible. Well, I guess they're okay. I've been in them. They're okay. That's what I'm saying. It's like it wouldn't be a place we would go. This is fine dining. It's my favorite place to go. It's just kind of out there. And so, when you create a very fuzzy target market with a very fuzzy, mediocre service offering, then you are basically competing on, did you get there first? Like Applebee's, what would you decide to go to Applebee's or TGI Fridays? It really depends on what side of the street it's on and you're driving down. If TGI Fridays is on the other side and I got to cross traffic, I'm just pulling in Applebee's because it's convenient, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So you're either convenience, then there might be other things. Price, is gonna impact that. And so, like, if you really want to go upstream in price, and when I say price, it's not just price. We're talking about margin. All right. So let's, because if I can sell a widget and get $100 margin, and you can only get $2, I mean, obviously, I want the $100 margin over the $2. So when you're really clear on your customer and you're really clear on what the value is, then price becomes a lot more elastic, right? And so I think, the reason if you're selling on price, then you're losing like, can you articulate, here's who we're for and here's the value we bring over everybody else? And, that's what you should be selling on, not here's the price. The first conversation you have to have with a prospect is this right for you? Do you have this problem that I can solve? And can I solve it better than anyone else? Price and terms are like way down the list. It's like, first of all, the person has to realize they have a problem. So is there even an awareness of a need? The next thing they're having to think about is, well, how do I solve that need? And then who's the best person to solve that for me? Then you get into price and terms. So again, if you move price all the way up, you're skipping over, is there even an awareness of a need? Is there even do they even want what you need, what you're selling? Do they see you as the company to buy it from? Because then I won't say price is irrelevant, because price is a factor in a buying decision. Absolutely. Right. But what I'm trying to say is it's not the only factor. It's not the most important factor, except for there's always a small percentage of an audience where they can't afford it. Like they might want it, but they might want to drive a Bentley, but they're not going to be able to afford it. Right. So there's always some percentage that's like that. But for most businesses, that percentage is a lot smaller. And where they're really missing is that larger part of the market that would pay more money if they could understand the value you bring and why you're worth more money. I think that's kind of my thoughts on price. I don't know if that helps you. If you want to go deeper on that.
No, I mean, it definitely does help. And you had some really basic examples that you talked about, do you want the cheapest house? Do you want the cheapest car?
The cheapest heart surgeon? Do you want, and the answer almost universally is no. They even people who can't afford it aren't making their decision on that. They still want good service. It's just a matter of, can they afford it? And, that has to go part of your pricing model. Also has to be designed with your customer in mind, your business model. So Walmart had a good pricing model. I mean, now it's questionable, but they did. I mean, they had, here's our customer and here's how we can offer low prices. They had a model to back it up. But that's going to be different than, let's say, if I'm, shopping at a high-end mall like Neiman Marcus or something like that. Right?
Well, and price, you said you don't want to say price is irrelevant, because yes, if people don't have money, they're not going to be your moose. They're not going to be your ideal target customer. Mm-hmm. But as I listen to the testimonials of the people that you've helped, a lot of small business owners who have generated massive income in addition to what they had because of what you provide. Yes. What does the price matter if it's helping them make a whole bunch more money? So yes, you talk about the value and what it means to them. Do you think it's a good idea to guide customers into feeling that pain, or just looking for prospects that already do feel that pain and acknowledge that pain?
Well, I mean, it's always going to be easier to sell to a known need. To try and develop the need for something it's not impossible, but it is more difficult. In the sense of, if I don't even know I need, like a lot of people out in the marketplace right now, for example, business owners listening, they do not know how inadequately they are prepared for a cyber event. Okay. Like with my clients, they think we're fine. We're too small. Nobody would want what we have. And that's the funniest thing. It's like, nobody wants what we have. They're not going to break into our office and ransom us. It's like, no, it's not that they don't want your stuff. Just like kidnappers don't want your kids. They're not trying to start a family. You want your kids. You want your data. You want your customer list. So they're going to lock everything up, and you're going to pay money to them to get it unlocked. The best paying sales letters are ransom notes. So, a lot of people aren't aware of that. Like, they're aware that there's cyber attacks. They're aware people get scammed of their money. They're aware of phishing attacks. We hear it all the time, but there's this kind of belief that, it's not going to happen to me. Right. So, in that case, that's one of the challenges my clients have, is trying to sell to the vast majority of business owners who are grossly ignorant about needing cyber protections. And so, it's always going to be easier for them to sell to somebody who knows they need it, wants to buy it, and they're looking for the best there's going to be in providing it. Because trying to sell to the unconverted is, again, it's not impossible, but it's very difficult.
Well, and you're right. You can sell to different customers. Some are harder to sell than others. I think you do a great job just with your content marketing. Your magazine is just excellent in reminding people that this is a huge issue because yes, it's tempting to bury your head in the sand, right? I don't want to think about it. One of our clients is Tom Kirkham. I know that you know him. He works with you, and he just wrote a book called Surviving the Cybersecurity Pandemic, because this can and it's very scary, but it definitely can happen. And so we need to be aware of that. And you have a huge presence in the market online, so that you are attracting those people, educating them, and then getting them to raise their hand and be interested in what you provide. So I think the content marketing is huge. So if we're talking to a salesperson, my target market, my moose are women. Do you have any specific advice? Do you have any additional ideas about how they can be more successful?
Yeah, I don't see successful people as being, okay, men are successful in different ways than women are. I really don't like broad generalizations, about like women, you have to manage women differently. I was at a conference, several years ago, like I want to say maybe it was one of Joe Polish's events, and I was on a women's panel. And a guy stood up and he said, how do I manage I've got a lot of women working for me. I'm a dude. Like, how do I manage them? What do I need to do to manage them differently? And my advice was, why don't you just manage them as an individual? Because in my business, the most connected, sympathetic, how would I say, just, person is a 70-year-old man the members love him because he's just, that's his personality. He's very, I wouldn't say he's not, I mean, he's not manly, if you will. Like, I'm not saying like that, but I'm not the person. I'm not empathetic. I'm not somebody who's going to sit and let you cry on my shoulder. I'm the one who's going to kick you in the ass and set it straight. People get really hung up, whether it's I'm young, or I'm old, or I'm a woman, or I'm a man, or something in between, or I'm Black, I'm Chinese, I'm, Latino, whatever. I mean, and they think there's different rules, like the world will treat you differently because of that. But the reality is every single one of us is some kind of combination of those things: age, gender, religion, race, all these things, right? And you can't change that about yourself, but that's part of what makes you unique too. So, I think for women, like if, they'll say, well, I'm getting passed over for promotions or I'm being paid unfairly. Go somewhere else. Quit. Like, there's no gun to your head making you work where you want to work, or start your own business like I did. Go, and then you can make whatever you want to make. And in sales, you can make whatever you want to make. It's very binary. There's a woman and a man on my team who are like total badass. They have different styles, different approach, but it's not because she's a woman, he's a man. They both hit quota. They both exceed quota. And it's not because she's a woman or because he's a man, right? So sales is the one thing that it's very black and white, in the sense you either make your quota or you don't make your quota. And it's based on activities and skill. It's not based on being a woman, being old, being young, being this, that, the other thing. And the minute you start saying, I can't succeed because, that's the problem. The problem's not because of your old, young, Black, white, male, female. The problem is because you've got some hang up because you think the world treats you differently. And because you believe that, it manifests. And because we see what we want to believe, and we manifest what we want to believe. So, I think, again, so I'm framing this because you asked the question the way you did, women specifically. And I'm not going to be one of those people that says, well, women are naturally going to be better at sales. And that's pandering. I mean, seriously, there are some women I've met that suck at selling, right? And they should be great at it. And met men who've sucked at selling. It's not, it's not, you got to get that out of your head. And I think if you become the most competent person you can be with the highest level of skill and good hard work ethic, and you're organized and you're focused, I don't care who you are, man, woman, or anything, black, white, it doesn't matter. You will win because the marketplace rewards competence, period. That's it. That's the reality. And everybody wants to make it about something else.
Well, interesting, because you are in a very male-dominated industry. You are leading a lot of men and helping them
I'll stop you
succeed.
there. I don't like dominated either. Dominated how? Dominance has a different word. It
Connotation.
means something different. And I hate the word empowering because nobody empowered me. You empower yourself. Saying I empower you is like, I'm so much greater than you with more power and more authority and more. So I will allow you to be successful, which is BS. And if you think you need someone to empower you, you're giving up your own power. You can do it under your own steam. So just because there's more men doesn't mean that it's male dominated, if you will. That now, again, so what does dominance mean? And so I think words matter. I'm a copywriter, so words really matter to me. And and I'm proof positive. Believe me, there's other people competing with me in the space. I'm not the only one. They're men, all of them. And I am by far the most successful if you count in longevity, if you count it by sales and revenue, if you count it by sheer number of members, if you count it by revenue profitability of my org. Now I don't know the profitability of the others, but I can count. Like if I have 1,400 people at my event and they've got 40, I'm,
Pretty
good
clear.
chance I'm making more money. So, so what I'm just saying is, it's just proof positive that it doesn't mean, just because it's male dominated does not mean that you're going to be somehow suppressed or set back or whatever. And I could tell you in the beginning, there was 2 women who actually were the most difficult, that gave me the most problems when I started in this industry. Then it's not to say men didn't give me a hard time at all, but but it's just, again, I don't like, you're getting the sense. I really do not like this men versus women. It's the oldest hack, and it's not true. Are we different? Yes, we are, but every person is an individual, and each individual needs to be judged on the merits of their character, of their work ethic, of their integrity, of their honesty, of their competence. And the marketplace rewards competence, period.
Well, could you now tell me what you really think?
Yeah, well, you asked. You're gonna
I know, and of
I'm
course,
not,
I do use the word male dominated. I came from the automotive industry, and I was one of few women. And I have to say, I did have to prove myself. I walked into a muffler shop, and I didn't have credibility until I proved myself. And I think I was held to a higher standard than men. Well, I ended up being the number 1 salesperson in the country, and I was one of just 3 women. But I've also talked to some young sales women, especially, who are breaking into, I won't say male dominated industries that are typically have men, right? And they are talked over. At a trade show, the customer will come and assume that the man is the one that they should talk to. And a lot of times the men, and I experienced this too, had my back. And that is wonderful. I think sometimes women are competing with each other where the men are more supportive, but we have to claim our place at the table. You are a very bold, confident, driven person. And everybody's different, but I've seen over and over again where women do have to work harder, at least at first, to claim that seat at the table.
To say I've seen where women, you don't think men have to work hard?
No, they do.
You don't think men have to prove themselves? You don't think that men get talked? I see men get talked over all the time. There are personalities that are extremely bold. Do they tend to be more male? Yes, they do. So, men tend to have more dominance and confidence, boldness, if you will. And a lot of women by choice tend to step back. If I'm getting talked over, I will tell them, wait a minute, I'm talking, and I will tell them that to their face. If women don't do that, and it's not a male thing. I've seen other men talk over other men. So I think this is just, again, going back to personal confidence, integrity, and the minute you start saying, well, I have to work harder to prove myself, well, then, again, go talk to men. Men have to prove themselves. They have to stand up for themselves. Men get passed over for promotions. I run a company, and I'm looking at it in my organization. We have over 10,000 customers I've worked with. So I've worked with a lot of entrepreneurs. A lot of them are men, some of them are women. And I'm telling you, men have to deal with the same challenges, improving themselves in overcoming, why should somebody trust me? Why should somebody listen to me? So yeah, I'm not saying it doesn't happen ever. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that to say it always happens and that's the way it is also incorrect.
And you're right. It doesn't always happen. In fact, some of my biggest supporters and mentors have been men. And so you're right. Men deal with the same issues as well. So like you said, how you see this and your words, what you manifest, your vision, that all affects what you experience in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Our 30 minutes are up. Can you believe it?
I know, it goes quick.
It goes quick. And thank you so much for your insights. You just have huge credibility because you have done this. You are just the facts. You're a woman dealing with mostly men, and you're proof that it can be done, and it can be done exceedingly well. So thank you for the inspiration. I appreciate it. And thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you, Kay. Appreciate you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Uncopyable Women in Sales, your source for secrets you can use to make more sales. Check the show notes for links and contact information. And if you enjoyed the podcast, please spread the word by subscribing, sharing, and leaving a 5-star review. You can always learn more by going to uncopyablesales.com/podcast. Until next time, go out and supercharge your sales like a true uncopyable rock star.